Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. This is Sewing with Tay. I'm Fantasia of the Aya Emporium, and today's going to be our third session of Learn How to Sew in 2 Weeks. So, I'm going to say, it's Learn How to Sew in 2 Weeks. I've done this series a long time ago on TikTok, so the videos were vertical, and then it didn't transfer well over to YouTube. So here I am like 2 years later doing it again in full video form, if you didn't catch this whole story in the first video. And I'm real busy right now, so I was trying to batch record these videos, but it didn't happen. So these videos aren't coming out every day, but I promise y'all I'm trying to keep like 2 days, no more than 2 days in between the videos. Go back, repeat some of the steps. I do have a lot of Learn How to Sew videos in general, so check out my playlist. But we're gonna get right into today, but I just wanted to give y'all some understanding. Like, I'm not dropping videos every day unless I do get to some bulk recording. But this weekend I have my first sold out hand knit blanket class, so I've been prepping for that. I'm gonna have like over 20 students, and it's a 3-hour class, so batch recording might not happen this weekend, so we'll see. But in today's Learn How to Sew lesson, we are going to talk about fabrics and fabrications. If you're new here, again, I'm Fantasia. What's up? I like to teach people how to sew. I've been sewing for 15 years. I like to talk about sewing in fashion and life in general. I'm a boy mom. I am new to being a lock girly, so every once in a while there are some videos about my locks. There might be some shorts about my locks. If that's your cup of tea, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you know when I'm making new videos. Alright, fabrication. So, first video, I gave you some background. We talked about the foundations of sewing and making sure we have what? Patience. The second video, we actually got into the machinery, getting it set up, which I feel like for the people that I have taught how to sew in person, that has been the most difficult thing for them, is remembering the steps and why we do things the way we do them. So if you have not mastered getting your machine threaded, it's okay, because we're still not sewing today. We will be sewing in the next video. But before we get to sewing, we gotta talk about what we're sewing on. So we're going to talk about the fabrication. There's two main fabrications. There's knits and there's wovens. They do require different treatments, different seam types, sometimes different machinery, but at a high level, beginner sewist, we're just going to start with the basics. So today I'm going to show you a piece of cotton. This is like a printed cotton from Joann's. It has like this right side, supposed to look like denim. This is the right side of your fabric. This is the wrong side of your fabric. And anytime you look at your fabric, when you buy fabric, you'll see there's a finished edge right here. And I'm going to go to my table and give you a closer view. You can see better on the wrong side. This is our selvage finished edge right there. That is the wrong side of our fabric. This is the right side of our fabric. This is woven fabric, which means it doesn't have stretch. Now, all woven fabrics don't have stretch, but ideally woven fabrics don't have stretch. Some of them have stretch where they might have like spandex or something put in them, so you'll get a little bit of stretch, but most woven fabrics have what we technically call mechanical stretch. So you get a little bit of something, but not that much that way. You get a little bit of mechanical stretch left to right, but that's it. Woven fabrics is not like your t-shirts, your leggings. They don't have stretch like that. We're gonna move on to the knit fabric. Alright, so we have our knit fabric, and I have my little printed kente cloth knit fabric. See, this is knit. It has stretch left to right and up and down. But all knits don't have stretch in both directions. Some knits fabrics have stretch just left to right. We call that two-way stretch. Some other knits have stretch left to right, or sorry, up and down and left to right. That would be four-way stretch. And as you can see, it's really nice to have 4-way stretch because I use this knit fabric to make my T.A.E headbands, which I do sell all year on my website, the T.A.E Emporium. So if you want to get one, that's where you'll find it. But they make good headbands because they can stretch in 4 directions around your head, and they're comfortable. If this is only a 2-way stretch, and say you cut the stretch going this way, I wouldn't be able to get it on my head. So this is knit fabric. Knit fabric also has a selvage. It's a little, it's not as easy to see as the woven fabric, but you can see here. This is the finished edge, and then you can see a little better on the wrong side. This, you can tell by the little dots. Let's see if we can get it to show. There's some little dots. That's the selvage edge of the fabric. So I'm going to go to my table, and we're going to talk about prepping your fabric for sewing. So for cotton fabrics, you can choose to pre-wash them because it helps with shrinkage. So that's a fun fact. You don't always have to do that. You can build in, like making your garments just a smidge bigger, so that when you sew something that's 100% cotton and you go to wash it, it shrinks a little, but it will shrink to the size you want it to be. There's a little math in that. If your fabric will shrink 10% or 20%, you'll have to figure out what that is, but you can pre-shrink your fabric by washing it. You don't have that issue with knits. As far as prep, you don't have to worry about washing your knits unless you want to. That's your business. So I'm going to go to my table. I'm going to give you a close-up of those two fabrics, the woven and the knit. We're going to talk about grain lines. You have straight grain, you have cross grain, and you have bias. So I'm going to give you a quick tutorial of what that is, what it looks like on your fabric, and then we're going to talk about putting your fabric together to sew. Remember, anytime you're sewing, you have 2 fabrics that you're sewing together to make a seam. So when you do that, you have to put your fabric in a certain way for that to happen and for your garment to be sewn correctly. Garment, item, accessory, etc. So let's head over to the table so we can do a quick walkthrough of those things I just mentioned. Alright, we're going to start with our woven fabric here. I'm going to give this a cut. Because this is woven, if you snip and rip, this will tear on straight grain. Just for reference, snip it right there. This is a straight line. Pull out your threads. There we go. Alright, so again, this is my right side of my fabric. This is my wrong side of my fabric. So when I say right sides together, when we're getting ready to sew something, and you have 2 pieces of fabric like this, you're going to put right sides together, and then we're going to sew. Alright? Okay. So, this is our selvage here. I'm going to use this side because I think it's a little easier to work through this. Let's cover this. Fish isn't giving me no money. There we go. So this is our selvage here. This is the raw edge. It comes from the factory like this. This is how you make sure your items, whatever you're making, is on grain. And we'll go over that when we get to pattern making. Or not pattern making specifically, but using patterns. But we're going to talk about grain lines, which are what you use on your patterns. So this is our selvage. You have your lengthwise grain, which is parallel to the selvage. So try to line that up. Oh, like that. This line here, and you can't really see that. That line right there is parallel to your selvage, and it is your lengthwise grain. Sorry, do it this way. My righty. So that is your lengthwise grain. Crosswise grain is perpendicular to your selvage. So if you ever need to cut something cross grain, it's going to go like so. perpendicular to your selvage. If you're ever going to cut something on bias, that means it is a 45-degree angle. So easiest way to do that, I'm going to flip it to the right side. Easiest way to do that, take a square, take one corner. This isn't a square, but you know. And this, say, that is my square. And take one corner, fold it so that that selvage is aligned with the straight line. This edge here becomes your bias. And the fun fact about woven fabric and bias, this is woven, little bit of mechanical stretch, left to right, up and down, no stretch. Put this bad boy on bias, you get a little bit more stretch across the 45-degree angle. So again, selvage, lengthwise, crosswise, and bias. So now we're going to move on to our knits. Everything is exactly the same for the knits, although you can cut things on bias. For knits, it just becomes extremely stretchy. But you will see here, this is my selvage. So this is my lengthwise grain. This is my crosswise grain. Put that into 45-degree angle. That is my bias. And same thing with this. You cannot cut knit fabrics and rip them like I did this woven. You can't do that. So you actually have to cut these. So when you go to sew 2 pieces of knit fabric together to make a seam, you're going to put right sides together just like that. So you have wrong side facing you, wrong side down, and your right sides go in the middle. Just to give you a little preview on how these things go together, this is the direction page from a jacket pattern that I have. These are the pattern pieces. You see these lines? If my camera focuses, maybe. See these lines here? Those are your grain lines. So this jacket, focus, would be cut on straight grain, meaning your pattern piece has a line like this. It's an arrow, so it has a top triangle and a bottom triangle. It is cut on straight grain, so that arrow on that pattern piece will be parallel with your selvage, just like this line is, and that's how you know the garment you are making or the item you are making is on grain, because that little jacket will be lined up parallel to this selvage. Got it? Good. Alright, so let's focus. Alright, so hopefully that was clear. Again, if it wasn't, please let me know. I am working on making better content for you guys because it seems like you guys are liking my Learn How to Sew series. I'm getting some views. So if that wasn't clear, let me know. To recap, we had woven fabric, we have knit fabric. Woven fabric has typically mechanical stretch, but that's it. Not very big stretch, just very slight stretch. Second fabric we looked at today was a knit fabric. That specifically was a jersey. I didn't tell you guys that, but it's a knit fabric. Knit fabric. That was a 4-way stretch, meaning that it stretched up and down and left to right. But not all knit fabrics have 4-way stretch. Some items have 2-way stretch. And we talked about grain lines. We talked about lengthwise grain, crosswise grain, and bias. And then we reviewed the intention of sewing a seam, meaning we have 2 pieces of fabric and we're putting right sides together, unless told otherwise, right sides together to make seams. So that's the recap for today's class. I have some things here I want to share with you really quick before we get out of here. This right here is Sew It Yourself. It is a book that I do have on my Amazon storefront. The link is in my description. I love this book because it's full of very simple projects that you don't need to have pattern making experience for. It's squares and circles, and you can make your own clothes, your own accessories, and I feel like this is such a good book for a beginner. Once you learn the basics going, what type of fabrics can do what, and what type of seams you need for those fabrications, this book is that girl for really fun beginner projects. When you get a little bit further in, there's this book here called School of Sewing that I also love. Talks about tools. It also talks about fabric in a little bit more detail. It does have some projects in here. I think both of these books are great for beginners, great for someone who's learning on the go. You don't have to study this like an encyclopedia, but there's some really good stuff in here for people who want to learn how to sew, want to make it a little bit more than a hobby. This is for you. Alright, so thank y'all so much for watching. Your homework is find you some cotton, find you some knit fabric, find out if it's 2-way stretch or 4-way stretch, get your machine threaded, practice getting it threaded and sewing that first straight seam, whether it's on your woven fabric or the knit fabric. We'll talk about the type of stitches you need for them, but for now we just want to make sure you can get your machine threaded and you got some fabrication. So until next time, y'all, I will talk to y'all later. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Until next time, y'all. Bye.